Welcome to the Blockchain and Healthcare Today ConV2X podcast edition for Decentralized Health. Get a glimpse into what BHTY's annual event will present on September 25 and 26 at the Foundry in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Today, our speakers are Mark Rakhmilevich, Group VP, Product Management and Development of Blockchain, Transaction Management, and Fintech at Oracle, and Mohan Venkataraman, Principal Consultant, Block10.ai. The topic is Enterprise Blockchain and AI Infrastructure Powering the Future of Decentralized Healthcare. Side note, this is part 1. And part 2 will be in person, featuring Microsoft CTO Ravi Sarkar and others. Now let's get right into it.
Thank you, Mark, for joining us in this podcast.
Thanks, Mohan. Appreciate it. Glad to be here.
Thank you so much. I'm hoping that we will definitely learn a lot from your experiences at Oracle. Now, before we begin, I would like to set the stage and ask you a few questions that can explore Oracle's innovations in the space of both blockchain and AI. So first, you are at the forefront bringing technologies like blockchain and AI to the enterprise clients. Briefly, can you tell us from your perspective at Oracle, what's the biggest driver pushing the healthcare industry towards a decentralized model right now?
Yeah, I will try. I think there are a number of key drivers here, right? First, when we look at the healthcare industry, we have to break it down into some segments, because there are a number of different participants within the healthcare ecosystems that roughly we group into providers, folks who deliver the care, payers, people who do insurance, claims, administration, financial side of it. And then there is a broader research community, right, which includes pharma research, clinical trials, healthcare research, academic research, and so on. And I think across those three segments, you probably have somewhat different drivers. The main ones I would point out are things like data interoperability and portability mandates. Certainly with the 21st Century CARES Act, and that's a U.S. law, but also other rules around the world. Requirements to share healthcare information, very applicable to providers and payers to some extent. There are significant, penalties if you don't comply. I think it's like a $1 million penalty per violation, and considering, how likely, lawyers are to gravitate to cases with penalties like that. There's already been some cases. I think last year there was a lawsuit against Point Click Care, and there's also some lawsuits in Florida as well. I think a challenge, it's sort of a challenging Florida hospital refusing to provide some data.
Right.
So that's a significant factor, I think, in terms of providers particularly. The second one I would say is patient-centric ownership of data, which is particularly impacting the research community. Today, if researchers want to access healthcare records across multiple, hospital systems and so on, multiple regions, let's say, that data has to be anonymized to a large extent, stripping it of all demographic information, which minimizes the value from a research perspective, right? Because you don't have the kind of demographic data that can help you make better discoveries from the research you're doing. There is some work going on to enable patients to provide essentially through some decentralized identities, and decentralized identity capabilities to enable researchers to actually solicit patient permission to access the data for research purposes, and integrate that into the sort of FHIR data access protocols that would then allow the full data to be made available to the researchers. So sort of a patient control of health data, maybe not ownership yet, but control of health data is an important factor. You also have a lot of collaboration that's happening in healthcare across multiple providers that need to work together as a care team. And that collaboration can benefit from blockchain and decentralized capabilities as well.
Yeah.
With privacy preservations, of course, have to happen. And the last I would mention is telehealth, right? Remote monitoring, telehealth, remote vitals monitoring solutions out there. That's again massive data decentralization requirements that needs blockchain in order to be able to ensure the data is you have auditable provenance, authenticated data, etc. that you can trust.
Right. So I think that's an excellent summary of the potential of blockchain and AI in the healthcare industry. Now, I just want to throw in, I've been involved with healthcare for some time. In fact, before blockchain came into the picture, as well as during the blockchain timeframe, some examples that come to my mind. When I was with Blue Cross Blue Shield of Massachusetts, the biggest issues that I saw was silos of data. And interestingly, we had to use middleware like WebLogic or WebSphere, IBM WebSphere, to integrate all these silos of data and partners. That was one of the biggest challenges, and data quality was a big issue. And I also noticed working for two other major pharma companies, they duplicate a lot of the efforts within their organization. Their IT is siloed, their R&D is siloed, and so they end up doing the same research multiple times, and there is no connection between what one group of researchers are doing versus the other. And these were problems that were before blockchain was around.
Yeah.
And rolling forward, in last 3 years or 4 years ago, I was involved with one of the, as you rightly pointed out, the patient and the doctor, the billing problems that are in the healthcare industry. This company was trying to make sure that the claims are properly processed, and that the claim delays are reduced, as a result of which the cost of claims are reduced. But one big issue which came about was that partners, especially if you deal with enterprise blockchains, it is a collaborative sport, and one of any of the sporting members could leave this collaborative team, and then the whole consortium could break apart, or the solution could just become yet another siloed solution, which is what I observed. Now, in your observations, what is your how do you think that enterprise grade blockchain platforms, or AI, or both, can address these long standing issues? Or do you see any other kind of issues that enterprise blockchain and AI can solve?
Yes, I mean, certainly I see a lot of data silos and a lot of data replication, which is not perfect. You end up introducing unavoidably, certain, drift errors and so on. And, I think there is a significant value proposition from for using shared immutable ledgers that blockchain can provide to create a single source of truth for transaction records, so claim status, for example, granting of consents from patients, without necessarily having, providers, giving up custody of the actual data itself. Providing, if you will, an index to the data on the blockchain that's trusted and immutable, which could include, the index of, access, so, visits, maybe doctor visits, hospital visits, prescriptions, orders for testing or whatever, right? And then from each one of those, you would be able to then provide access and have links to the actual healthcare data behind them. Some of it, some of the healthcare data could be very large, voluminous images that could be, I think in MRI cases, could be like terabytes in size. Nobody would put those on a blockchain. Those will remain within, the organizational boundaries of, whichever organization did the testing. But having an index that you did have the MRI appointment, you did, have certain, results from that, things like that, or, ability to indirectly find links to that data. I think that's where blockchain can really provide the single source of truth. The other thing that's I've faced was, not being a healthcare expert by any means, I've started looking into how do you share the data, and was really glad to hear there is this HL7 standard out there that standardizes how healthcare is presented.
Mhm.
Lo and behold, when I started looking at it, it turns out that HL7 standard is such a broad definition that allows people to make so many decisions about what to put in a particular field or how to represent something that it's hardly useful for anybody to be able to actually verify the data. So this is where standardizing how data is represented using smart contracts, and also where AI can provide value, would make it easier, right? So that the data is truly standardized, or at least it's tagged in a way that makes it easier to programmatically understand what you're dealing with and extract it, and then validate it if necessary, right, using smart contract business logic. A blockchain can also provide tokenized data access. Again, if you have this index on a blockchain of the claims, or consent grants, or patient visits for healthcare services, etc., you can record the permissions that the patient allows somebody to access the data. They can share it maybe with another provider. You could have cryptographic proofs that whatever queries come in are compliant. So all of those kind of capabilities make blockchain very useful. And from AI perspective, one thing that we've been focusing on is this concept of swarm AI. A swarm AI is kind of a model of federated learning, where you have models being trained on silos of data that cannot be shared because of the privacy reasons. And therefore each model is suboptimal, but the results of the training of the models, the model weights and biases and things like that, can be shared, again using blockchain to ensure authoritative provenance and authenticated provenance with other models. And so now you're training the model by leveraging not only your local data, but the parameters and weights and so on that come from other models being trained in the same area, detection of a particular disease, for example. That's kind of a popular way of using AI in healthcare. By combining those other models' learning results with the learning you have from your own data, and that makes the models much stronger in terms of the ability to predict outcomes from care, predict, or do, disease discovery
Right.
and things like that.
See, I want to touch upon more on the problems and how we can solve it. Right. So there are multiple ways, and I believe Oracle blockchain is based on Hyperledger technology. And I'm going to speak from some
Sure.
experiences in the past versus public blockchains. And what was seen is that there are certain limitations in both technologies, the way public blockchains operate versus private blockchains or consortium blockchains, meaning like as a business network. And so there is a certain, going back to this example of how this company that does the accounting for all the claims nationwide was trying to process transactions, right? They were trying to build a consortium, and the success of that is based on how well the consortium works together. And so they were building this whole capability of foundational aspects. I also look back at the some of the other clients I worked with. They were all trying to build foundational components. In your from an Oracle perspective, where I mean Oracle the company, what do you see? What is lacking in the industry in terms of like if this this whole symposium is based on how do we power decentralized healthcare, right? So is there like some kind of a architectural framework or a platform that needs to be established around blockchain capabilities and AI that the industry can use in order to build build healthcare solutions, because healthcare is broad, right? We are just talking about billing and claims, but there is research, looking at research and drug discovery, or clinical trials, secure exchange of records, as you rightly pointed out, and all these require some capabilities. I would like to understand or get some insights. What do you feel would be an approach to build a platform? Or
Well, I think you sort of have to start with the core kind of foundational capabilities that is lacking today, right? Which, in my view, is sort of trusted, interoperable data exchange, data sharing mechanism. And I'm talking about data sharing broadly, right? This is providers, this is research, this is financial claims data, etc. You need to have this connective tissue, right? Whether it's the clinical data, lab results, information and records and claims, imaging, and even genomics kind of sharing. There is a lot of really interesting healthcare work happening with sort of things that are being created as private genomics kind of research and things like that. You need to have this robust exchange layer, and I think the interoperability across multiple blockchains. I don't think there's going to be ever a single blockchain framework to rule them all, right? I mean, that's unrealistic. You and I have been long enough in this industry to know that there's going to be multiple blockchain technologies, multiple blockchain frameworks, whether from Hyperledger or many other consortiums out there or standards organizations, etc. And the crux of the challenge is interoperability, ensuring that they can securely exchange the data. We have been and there is so much deployment, so many sectors going on, but they're all very siloed deployments. So cross-blockchain, cross-ledger interoperability is, I think, going to be important. The other thing that you need on top of this data exchange layer is embedded governance, things like built-in compliance and consent management, ability to capture granular patient consent, and then execute based on that consent the access permissions for access to the data. So it's really ability to exchange this data under the right rules for every interaction, for every transaction, right? I mean, the time when you sign a some kind of a HIPAA release and say, okay, you can access all of my data forever, I think are past. People are going to be patients are going to be much more careful about what data they make available to whom, under what circumstances, and for how long. And so you need the granularity of those consents on top of the blockchain framework for compliance and governance. And then I think you need to make this data accessible and useful in sort of AI-ready data pipelines, right? So that when AI is being trained on a variety of this healthcare data, it can ensure using blockchain guardrails that the data is complete, that it's standardized, that it's traceable. And that ultimately leads to what we call explainable AI, where you can actually track the training process, ensure that you know exactly, you can prove what data it was trained on. And then as you go through the inferencing or using AI models to actually create inferences, you have granular audit logs to understand how exactly a particular outcome or particular result was reached, so that you can trace it and detect any, biases, any issues, hallucinations, and things like that.
actually, you made some wonderful points. I think I got a few of them here, from having a data exchange layer. I think these are all core architectural concepts. Having a data exchange layer, a consent layer, a data governance, or actually a solution governance layer, access mechanisms. Earlier on, you had mentioned HL7, and you talked about how it standardizes certain parts of the healthcare industry. But HL7 itself can actually be transformed into a better model for architecturally with the help of AI and blockchain. At least that comes to mind. Plus, of course, you talked about guardrails, explainable AI. All are great architectural concepts. Actually, you have answered the next question that I was actually about to ask you, but still I'm going to ask you because Oracle is a major technology player. In fact, my career started in '93 started with Oracle, which is one of the strongest data companies, right? And today, of
Yeah.
course, Oracle does a lot more. So, as a major player in this enterprise technology, and especially with Oracle blockchain platform and Oracle cloud infrastructure, which I often hear about, how how do you see Oracle is well positioned, and this is entirely about Oracle now, is well positioned to handle scale, performance, and compliance requirements that are unique to the healthcare industry and the life sciences industry? Some
Well,
insights on
absolutely.
Oracle would definitely benefit both people who are eager to learn about Oracle as a platform, and also personally, I'm interested in understanding more about Oracle.
Yeah, happy to talk about what we've been doing in Oracle in terms of blockchain and related technologies as well. Scalability is a multifaceted topic, right? So, when we started working, we released our first platform in the cloud, our Oracle blockchain platform in 2018. And one of the immediate requirements was to take this open source Hyperledger Fabric technology and really make it suitable for enterprise deployments, right? That meant that you could create instances that can scale vertically and horizontally to ensure that you have the high availability and resilience by replicating all of the components and running them in replicated, data centers within a cloud region, for example. Um, and ensuring that all of the general things that we do to ensure that our infrastructure is performant, provides maximum levels of availability, what Oracle calls MAA, maximum availability architecture, and so on. We apply that to the blockchain world and ensure that our blockchain instances follow all the same practices. The next facet is around creating a network of instances, right? So just an individual
Mhm.
instance is not enough. You have to be able to have multiple organizations participate. And whether it's in a cloud or we also have a non-cloud version of our blockchain platform, you can run it in other clouds. So it's available in Azure and AWS. You could deploy it, Google, etc. It's all Kubernetes based, so it's very easy to deploy even premises, even if you'd like. And those nodes can all register with each other with a network to create a consortium network that can span multiple locations, regions, Oracle Cloud, data centers, as well as non-Oracle. And all of those capabilities allow you to create a really, global cloud scale deployment if needed, and ensure that you have multiple organizations being able to join and participate in this consortium network model. Beyond that, of course, we're talking about permission blockchain, as you mentioned earlier. And by the way, I mentioned Hyperledger Fabric was our first blockchain. We're now also working to support Hyperledger Besu, which is another framework aligned with Ethereum. But in both cases, you also need to provide permissioning infrastructure, right? So security, access control, multi-level access control down to the level of smart contracts so that you could determine within the smart contract who has access to what data, what operations, what wallets, etc. Auditability is another important factor from a configuration perspective. We actually use blockchain itself to capture any configuration changes that might be done and create a blockchain transaction record, which is immutable, and provide the ability to then, you can register administrators, for example, or security teams can register for events to be notified when configurations change and things like that. The other big area is around integrations. Blockchain does not run by itself. It needs to be integrated with a lot of other systems within an enterprise.
Correct.
And we provide strong integration APIs, event-driven architecture for notifications and triggering downstream systems and so on. So a lot of those capabilities kind of go into the overall kind of enterprise-grade model. Plus, of course, management, monitoring, operations, and tooling around that. We also provide low-code development tooling, which allows customers and partners, ISVs, system integrators, to automatically generate smart contracts from declarative descriptions. So you don't need a blockchain PhD to actually create solutions. You could have pretty much anybody in the enterprise identify the data you want to track, the schema relevant to that data, the operations that you want to perform, and then we'll generate the smart contracts on the fly using this blockchain app builder low-code development tool and help you deploy it.
I see. So let me move to a completely set of practical. That was an excellent overview of Oracle blockchain, by the way. But let's move into some use cases here, and I'm going to give you some examples and the challenges I have faced, and I'm sure people in the industry must have faced the same thing. Therefore, I've noticed in the medical appliances industry, or especially companies that are involved in pharmaceuticals, there is always this middleman, the middle person, the distributor. So essentially, one always finds there is a collaborative issue between the distributor, the pharma companies, the hospital, and so on. So there is, and blockchain can actually solve the problem, but bringing them all together and making the distributor agree without exposing prices of each one of the suppliers on their platform has been a challenge. I'm throwing some challenges and some interesting use cases because clients have often asked this. The other challenge I have seen is the use of decentralized IDs as opposed to the subscriber ID and the member ID, using decentralized IDs for patients, doctors in the hospital. But blockchains provide excellent cover through DID and verifiable credentials. There's also another issue that I have seen with Trust Your Supplier itself. Trust Your Supplier is a supplier risk assessment platform, and it was used effectively during the COVID timeframe from the perspective of how do suppliers get assessed from a risk perspective, and how can e-commerce be performed between buyers and suppliers in a collaborative way in a trusted environment. And it was called Rapid Supplier Connect. So there are very good use cases on how blockchain can impact the healthcare industry, but at the same time, there are some challenges that have to be overcome. And obviously, it'll take some time. Adoption is one big issue, getting members to play together and adopt the blockchain solution as opposed to a siloed solution. In your, I would like to hear some use cases from your perspective where you have been involved with healthcare use cases beyond proof of concept, and what were the successes and what were some measurable results that you have seen, and what are the challenges that need to be overcome. It's mainly from how the real world sees blockchain in the healthcare industry. Could you elaborate on some of your experiences here?
Yeah, absolutely. Glad to do that. So, it's interesting. The very first example you described around pharmaceutical distribution chain, right? And, the distributors in the middle. There was an actual project that we've done some years ago in India, working with NITI Aayog, which is sort of National Institute for Transforming India, kind of a research think tank. Some pharmaceutical company, I think Strides Pharmaceuticals, and Apollo Hospital chain pharmacies, to create a blockchain-driven infrastructure that tracked the drugs from the manufacturer to distribution to retail points of sale using IoT sensors and blockchain. NITI Aayog actually wrote a report on that. And I think this is now being used as a model within certain states in India to deploy that kind of drug traceability solution, where it would essentially connect multiple systems from the manufacturer's ERP at Strides, for example, to the distributor systems that track the inventory management, to the CRM systems and point of sale systems at retailers. And record on blockchain all of the touch points, all of the handoff events, right? So that somebody then at point of sale could actually run a simple query by scanning some tag or QR code and see the entire history When did the product, when was the product manufactured? When was it, transported to distributor? Were there any temperature spikes that may have damaged it in case of vaccines or some of the other pharmaceutical products? Temperature control is extremely important. When was it, moved from that inventory of distributor to the retailer? Even geolocation, if for example, considering situations where somebody could, bring in some fake drugs from another location or something like that. So all of that information was captured on a blockchain platform, made available and visible at all of those different, areas. And I think that was probably one of the first in the industry, or at least, one of the early in the industry demonstrations of how the pharmaceutical supply chain can be tracked on blockchain end to end in order to ensure both that there is no fake medicines introduced, no drugs that are expired, or drugs that have maybe suffered from some temperature spikes or some other events that IoT sensors can monitor. So that was a great example. There has been some other pharmaceutical traceability projects since. And I think that's a very promising area of leveraging blockchain in in healthcare in general. The other area that we've seen quite actively related to that is in clinical trials. You have a supply management problem in clinical trials, where the pharmaceutical companies do not use their high volume distribution systems. They have to track the investigational medicines that are used in supply chains in a very special way. And there are a lot of different touch points from the manufacturing company to all of the intermediaries that manage the trials down to the actual investigation site, right? The doctor, the hospital where the drugs are administered. How much being used, where it's being used, is the unused medicine needs to be returned and destroyed, and so on. So there is, supply traceability is there that blockchain can, I think, impact significantly. The other area we have seen that's been promising from a going live environment are provider directories. So insurance companies in particular are struggling with the provider information being inaccurate, out of date, inconsistent, and so on.
That's true.
And there's been project out there like Synaptic Health Alliance, for example, that has been actively working in the space, shared decentralized blockchain-based provider directory with Humana, United Health, and others. They reported around 500% ROI that improves data accuracy and the cost of managing and collecting the provider data. Block Secure Health, I think, has a SymBlock, which is a similar kind of deployment. And just recently, I've seen Veterans Administration issue an RFI for provider directory, provider information tracking across the entire VA ecosystem. So if that RFI is going to move forward to an RFP and so on, it's going to be a very interesting project, I think, for the industry and for people that can provide strong blockchain-based solutions.
Those are very, very nice use cases. I want to throw in two use cases I was involved with, though we never solved it, and I would like to get your take on it. It is one was at one time I was with a think tank group here locally, which was trying to solve the opioid crisis. There is a lot of opioid problems in this country, and
definitely
dispensing. There is a kind of a stigma around the addicted person going to the doctor even treating them because they don't want these patients around their hospitals. And how do you dispense, the antidote for this addiction safely and securely, especially on the rural side where doctors are less. So there was a thought process that we discussed that blockchain could actually help solve by bringing in privacy as well as trust in the way the prescriptions are administered through vending machines. Just like one can go to a vending machine and get Coke, one could go to the vending machine and blockchain could drive it to prescribe the antidote. The other use case, you did mention about the middleman distributor, but in the US, the real issue that we have seen in the use cases is where the distributor is also a manufacturer. Like if we go to any of the pharmaceutical pharmacies here or the drugstore itself has a brand. So usually the hospitals place their orders to these middlemen, and the middlemen determine what to supply. And usually the manufacturers lose out to the distributor's brand. And that was another use case that uh, I was involved in thinking about how to solve it. What do you? I just want to get your perspective on these kind of unique things that happen here, and especially with the current administration's focus on reducing the prices of drugs in the marketplace and also making it easily accessible to the people. How do you see, um, uh, in the future, blockchains and AI coming together to solve these kind of issues?
Yeah. Well, I think a big impact on pricing comes from transparency and visibility. Consumers, all of us, right, as consumers of healthcare, if we have insurance, through work or whatever, we don't really pay much attention to how much things cost or how much, what the charges are, because you almost can ignore those numbers because they don't apply to you, right? Insurance has negotiated some pricing with providers that's different than general pricing. They're going to settle it. You're going to have some minimum deductibles or copays, etc. And I think until we bring some degree of transparency and visibility to the actual pricing,
Right.
whether it's for hospital services, any kind of clinical outpatient services, or even pharmaceuticals, um, you know, it's going to be tough to solve price challenges, cost challenges. So blockchain can certainly provide, I think, a good underlying mechanism where you can see the actual prices that are being charged. Now, of course, there's confidentiality issues, and there is business confidentiality that some organizations might not want to share some of this information. I think legislation can help there, maybe to make it a little bit less opaque. And then just like I think some years ago there was a law passed that hospitals supposed to publish their prices for common services, maybe not for every single thing, but for the things that are pretty common and frequent. Try to find those. I actually try to go and find some
Right.
cost data, and you have to go through an enormous amount of research to figure where on a hospital website this is buried and is it current and how to decipher it and all of that stuff. So I think bringing forward that kind of transparency and visibility and using blockchains, there could be third-party independent organizations that actually provide that access. You can go today when you're buying car insurance, and there are companies out there that can give you a comparative pricing across like 10 different companies. I don't think anybody in healthcare can do that today, but I think we should move towards that kind of model where I can just go to some comparative website and I can see, what the different prices are, underpinned by having data in a trusted, manner provided through immutable blockchain technology with authenticated provenance and so on, updated in real time. That's another thing. So much data out there is out of date. There is a medical pharmaceutical consortium in Europe that's working on ensuring that the data they publish on the pharmaceutical products is always current, right? The latest versions of everything,
Right.
prescribe information, how to use that kind of thing, right? And I think, real-time updates is what blockchain is really good at. And then, of course, you could have agentic AI analyze the data and, make recommendations, based on, maybe your, access to your personal history. Maybe you need particular procedure and, you don't have enough health background to decide, hospital A, hospital B, hospital C, basically is the same procedure, 3 different price points. But that's not enough to make a decision. You really need to have more detailed information about, how good the outcomes are, right? I mean, they all do procedure X, but in one case, the outcomes are much better than in other cases, right? So it's not just a price decision. You want to know you're going to get the best care possible for your dollar. And agentic AI, I think, can help in analyzing a lot of the data and making some, conclusions, informed conclusions. But the source of the data has to be authenticated right? You have to be able to show that it came from legitimate sources. And so that's where I think blockchain and AI, particularly agentic AI, can work together very effectively.
Thank you. And I just want to wrap up in the next 5 minutes. This is an excellent discussion, and I learned a lot of things from you, Mark. Especially, what I see plenty of use cases in the market, and these are use cases that I have been behind since 2016. A number of them are still unsolved. So I see a lot of potential in the use of blockchain and AI to solve these problems. But the maturity of blockchain today and the advent of AI actually make it possible to have better solutions today than what was possible a couple of years ago. The second I understood from you was that we need to have some kind of a framework so that applications built can leverage these common components, whether it is an data exchange layer that is secure based on standards like HL7 or any other standard, a good governance layer where participants feel secure and comfortable, and other pieces of the architecture layer are very important for solutions to be long-standing, meaning like one starts to build a solution and next day you see that solution breaks apart because some of the members are not happy with it, or they break away from the consortium. So both these, both agentic AI and blockchain, I can see them potentially driving a number of solutions in clinical trials, clinical research, drug discovery, solving common supply chain problems. Obviously, decentralized identity can help have better patient privacy and secure sharing of data. And lastly, of course, the encryption technology of blockchain allows for complying with regulations and regulatory compliance. So with that, I just want to pass it to you, Mark, for any final thoughts that you may have that you want to offer to the audience.
Sure. I mean, I think there is an enormous potential for leveraging blockchain and AI together in healthcare space. Healthcare is a very sensitive area, both personally and just in terms of its overall impact on economy. So we're going to see gradual adoption. I think the areas like, for example, crowdsourced provider directories is a fairly safe area to apply blockchain to, right? It's not making health decisions, it's just collecting the data in a way that makes it easier for everybody to ensure they have up-to-date data. I think the areas of price transparency and visibility is another area that while it's going to need, I think, some regulatory governance and maybe some legislation and so on, I think that's an area that's going to be promising because it's one of the very tangible ways of impacting the cost by making things more transparent and doing it in a way that covers a large number of providers, right? Not just individual organizations, but let's say hospitals in the region or across the state or what have you. Sometimes even pharmacy, right? I mean, you can get different drug prices for the same thing at pharmacies that are like a mile apart for no particular reason that anybody can discern. At least those of us who are not in the industry cannot discern. So those are some of the areas I would expect to see some early adoption. I think academic research and swarm AI leveraging the blockchain integration of different models so that the learning, the weights and the parameters and so on can be shared without sharing individual data. That's an area that we are working on, and I know many other companies are trying to work on that space as well. So I would expect to see more of that in the healthcare research community being adopted in the coming years.
Thank you so much, Mark. Thank you for participating in this podcast. Once again,
happy to be here. Glad we had this conversation, and happy to share more information. If somebody's interested in reaching out, I'm available on LinkedIn. We can connect through mark.rakhmilevich. That's on LinkedIn. Or, they can also come to oracle.com/blockchain page and see some of the things we're doing in the blockchain area.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Mark. And I want to thank Tori Sinaj, who is the founder of Conv2X and BHTY, for enabling this podcast. Thank you, Tori, so much for this podcast. With this, I
Thanks,
end.
Mohan and Tori.
We appreciate your tuning in to BHTY's special edition Conv2X podcast. Join us at the Foundry in Cambridge, Mass. for 2 days of discovery, dialogue, and collaboration, driving platform and decentralized technology in healthcare and life sciences, September 25 and 26. To register, please visit conv2xsymposium.com. That's CONV2xsymposium.com. Thanks for listening.